So this strapping young man, some may say cocksure, you don't get to use that word very often, so I say when the shoe fits. That's my father, John. He was born the last of 8 children into a family that lived in very deep poverty in Arkansas. My dad and his siblings knew very early on that the value placed in them was on what they could do with their hands, and not so much about what went on in their heads. College was for rich people, and high school was just delaying the inevitable. So at 13, my father dropped out of the 8th grade. He hitchhiked from Arkansas to California in search of the great job that you can do with your hands. Along the way, you might guess, he found many that you can do with your hands. Everything from working in the fields to working in the cannery to ultimately construction. And he worked in construction for about 20 to 25 years. And he probably would have kept moving on in that direction for another 15, except that he fell off of a roof, and he wasn't really the same after that. His legs didn't work so well, and his back gave out. His hands still worked. So he took up lamp making and furniture building, and his head still worked. He got himself involved in becoming an avid reader. In fact, his favorite things to read were geology textbooks, of all things, right? Dad was a lot smarter than anybody knew, even my dad. So it's not surprising to me, at least this far removed from childhood, that I find in my father's words a great deal of wisdom. Who among us finds their parents' words when you're children to be all that wise? Raise your hand. My father was the master of the one-liner, and he had a million of them, and I'm only going to subject you to 3 of them tonight. Mostly because, well, first of all, time, and then most of them start with the F word, and so we're just gonna move on. The funniest phrase my dad would use was, "You gotta walk it like you talk it, or you'll lose that beat." You gotta walk it like you talk it, or you'll lose that beat. And he always tapped his foot just like that. And the thing is, Dad would say that without any context or warning and out of the blue, and he had no living idea what the hell he meant by that phrase. I started to wonder if he had a very narrowly tailored form of Tourette syndrome. I wasn't sure. Today, however, I really find solace and great wisdom in those words. Basically, Dad was just saying, look, you got to do what you say you're going to do, right? You got to put up or shut up. Less of this and more do. He also liked to catch you a little bit. So when he would catch you when you weren't at your best, you delivered something that wasn't done very well, he'd ask you what went on. What's that about? Why'd you break the antenna off the car? It was flimsy. He would say, look, don't make excuses. Don't point your finger. And he'd point his finger, and he would wait for you to point yours. And I'd feel just as stupid then as I do right now, pointing my finger at you. And he'd say, look, when you point your one finger, there are 3 more fingers pointing right back at you. Take responsibility for what goes on. Right? The last thing that I'll share with you that he said, and this was my favorite, because it always happened in traffic, as much traffic as you get in rural Oregon, which meant a cow and a trailer of some sort. And he would lay on the horn and he would yell, "Lead, follow, or get the out of the way." Right? Loved that one. I've loved that one since the moment I heard it the very first time. He always threw something out the window. It was awesome. But at the crux of it, he was absolutely right. Make a decision, man. Lead, follow, or beat it, right? You're in my way. I'm trying to do something here. Great words of wisdom. Like I said, these were the lessons my dad knew. These were the things he grew up on. It's what came to him to be the lesson of the time. Unfortunately, too many of the lessons of his time still carry with us today. 80% of the kids in the upper income quartile of our country will go on to get college degrees, and under 10% of the kids in the lowest quartile will get college degrees. It's still true today. College is for the rich. While we're having this little chat, 15 kids are going to drop out of school nationwide. That's 15 lives and 15 families and 15 futures that are in turmoil and a downward spiral. And unfortunately, we've known these facts for a very long time. They're not very different from when my father was a kid. But in education, you see, we like to make excuses. We blame the family, we blame the community, hell, we blame the kid. He's poor. His parents don't care. They didn't read to him. I don't know how many fingers I pointed out there, but I pointed like we were going to get paid by the target, right? Unfortunately, nobody's going to get paid while we're still making excuses. We know so much more than we did when my dad was a kid. For example, what we know today is that if you can get kids reading at grade level by 3rd grade, the trajectory soars. It's an amazing indicator, a very early indicator, just one, but an amazing indicator, right? The other side of that notion, though, is for all those kids who aren't, they almost become the cohort who drop out of school later. In fact, some say that prisons are built based on the size of that cohort, based on the kids who can read at 3rd grade. And we know this. We say it out loud. What do? Right? Dad would say, you got to walk it like you talk it. Right? If you know this and you're not doubling down on this, you're nobody's friend. You got to invest everything you have, and you better borrow from somebody else to get some more to make sure that kids are reading by 3rd grade. And it's just one example of things we can be doing we know work, right? Because we got to walk it like we talk it. You know, leadership is something we take very seriously at the League. I feel so blessed to work in this organization that fights every day to add opportunities for kids, all kids. That we're not making choices for kids, we're creating opportunity and choices for kids. It's an amazing blessing. I am that 1st-generation college graduate who got the opportunity to do what I wanted to do. And my life was transformed from it. That's what we want for everyone. But we have to decide whether we're going to lead, follow, or get out of the way. Too many of us decide the latter. But for those who choose in the other 2 categories, the rewards are amazing. Last week, we got a call from a woman who lives in snow something, I don't know. There's so many snows here, I'm still getting used to it. And none of them have W at the end, I'm just going to tell you that right now. She was on fire because her daughter wasn't ready to be on a college trajectory, right? She knew that her kid really needed to be boned up on algebra in the 8th grade, and that if she wasn't, college was going to be a little bit tough because she probably was going to be on a trajectory for remedial education. So she knew, my daughter has to have better. She even moved across district lines to find a better place where she learned how far behind her daughter was because she wasn't up to snuff. And she could have given up and said, oh, to heck with it. I'll do what they, I'll do what others do. I'll hire a private tutor, or, we'll go to one of those places that take your money and tell your kids how great they are and teach them algebra. Some of you do that. You know who you are. But instead, what she did was she got her information together. This is an amazing thing. She just got her information together. She went looking at what the algebra curriculum was. She looked at what was required for college. She called UW. She found out her facts, and then she looked at the districts and said, what does each district do? And what's going on from just school to school? And then she got the principals together, she got the teachers together, she got the superintendents together, and she said, we have to do something here. The district next door to us is killing us, right? We have the same kids as they do. Our kids should be going to college. They agreed. They're going to double down on algebra next year. Twice as many kids are going to get high quality algebra next year, right? And she was depressed because it wasn't everybody, right? She's going to go back and get the rest of it. That's the amazing thing that happens when you engage. Great things can happen. A community engaged is a community changed. And I know you all know that because each of you in your own way is committing to some cause, something that you're doing right now, whether it's just through, hi, I'm an investee. There's no just through philanthropy, okay? I just want to clear that up. Whether it's through philanthropy and your actions, or through helping with your kids' Little League, or being on the PTA, it's all important. And the first step is the hardest, right? So when you have a friend who's doing this work and you're interested, you should buddy up with them, right? You have a lot of people in this room who know a heck of a lot more about education than I'm ever going to know. and they can be your leaders. But it's going to take each one of us doing something. So if you can't find that middleman, email me. I'm Chris@educationvoters.org. Put that on the internet. Find me. I'll help you figure out something to do. It doesn't have to take up your entire day. It could be whatever you're comfortable with, right? Because it takes each of us doing something. We all know every kid can learn. We all know all children want to learn. The question is, will we walk the walk to make that happen? And I know what my dad would say. Thanks.